nose one and say, can we have your help?
It's a colonizer's attitude to say, I like it, I'm just going to steal it. Now, the fact of the matter is, in this new land, you cannot just go and say, I like it, it's mine now. It doesn't work that way. Well, that is what they're trying to do. And in this new world order, yeah, absolutely. When they're looking at Greenland and say, I like it, I want to take it for mine, that is a very colonizer attitude.
I have never ever said we're going to go to Greenland and quote colonize it or steal it.
You're not a member of government, so you're irrelevant.
What's happening, everybody? Scott Jennings once again found himself on the panel on NewsNight with Abby Phillip yesterday, and things were heated from the jump. Why did things get heated so quickly, you ask? Because CNN invited one of the biggest assholes on the planet, Tiffany Cross, back to the panel for only God knows why. Now, we all expect her to be rude and disrespectful. That's part of her charm. But she was feeling extra oppressed yesterday. It was so bad that she flat out personally attacked Scott Jennings, and his comeback was just as good as you're hoping it would be. Anyway, let's watch Scott Jennings laugh in the face of Tiffany Cross as she attempts to insult him and deliver a comeback for the ages. Let's go.
That is not livable.
And the trade, honestly, the trade is asymmetrical.
And who voted for Donald Trump?
Precisely. Trade is asymmetrical with China. We imported over 439 billion products from China. We exported over 140 billion from China. Their own foreign ministry has said, we will not flinch. We will not genuflect to a bullying government. I respectfully disagree.
Though, Tiffany, that we rely so much on an adversary to make most of our goods?
Listen, whether it bothers me or not is irrelevant. I'm dealing with reality. It is important, but this is what it is.
Why does it have to be the reality that we are dependent on so many things to come out of our biggest adversary in the world? They are the enemy, and we should not be dependent on them.
But no, they are not our enemy. They're our biggest trading partner. And if we
earth minerals and you don't.
They're the enemy.
Right. But listen, but like it or not, sure, Michael, they are our biggest trading partner. And if we were to manufacture iPhones here, iPhones would cost $3,500. The American people are not going to tolerate that. We have one of the highest standards of working conditions here. I don't think that we can say, forget you, China. They
so it's
literally.
Okay. So you're okay. Hold on, sure, Michael. So you're okay. You're okay if we continue to put our own economic and national security future in the hands of our biggest enemy, because effectively they use slave labor to build stuff, and that makes it better for us? That is terrible.
I am 100% not okay with that, but I'm dealing in the reality of what it is.
Do you want to change it?
But we need to
I absolutely want to change it. I don't know that changing it means isolating us on the global stage.
So what happens,
with
so
these
Tiffany, if I could ask, what happens if we ever have a military conflict with China, and they say, you know what, we're going to put an embargo on anything shipping to the United States. We're going to stop everything. What happens then?
Don't you think that in a situation we would want to have friends?
Not China.
No. I'm saying allies, not the ones that, like people that we put tariffs on in the last week. Wouldn't you think that what we would want is to build trading relationships with people who like us?
Fair trade relationships that benefit the United States and not our friends. That's not a good friendship. That's an abusive relationship.
Fair relationships with people who are our friends. Wouldn't that be the right strategy?
I would agree with fair.
But what happened over the last week was not that. What happened over the last week was that we said we're going to treat Britain and France and the EU like China. We're going to just take the same formula we use for China and slap it on our friends. Make any sense to you?
What makes sense to me is to decrease the trade issues that we have with other countries. I think that makes sense. It doesn't make sense to me that our friends across the globe have a benefit to trading with the United States and American workers do not. I mean, these deficiencies do exist.
Why do you want to repair 70 years of imbalance? And I agree fully with both of you that the trade relationship vis-a-vis the United States had to be readjusted.
You've talked about it.
Yes, but you don't do it overnight, and you don't offend your allies while you're doing it with the whole Greenland, 51st state, Japan. You just don't do that. Not in
everything that everyone has said thus far, besides Scott and besides Shermichael, is absolute nonsense. How do I even refute it? It's so stupid. But I'm going to give it a shot anyway. Richard, the guy who's on screen right now, is such a freaking beta. Why do you want to undo 70 years of trade agreement? Because they're not fair to us, dumbass. You have to make bold moves, and that's what Trump did. No one else would do what he did. He kept the tariffs in place to show the entire world we're not effing around anymore. Let's discuss mutually beneficial trade agreements and show us not just tell us that you're going to abide by the new agreement. After what's happened just in this week, do you think anyone in the world has any doubt that Trump will tariff the shit out of them if they mess with the U.S. economically? And Tiffany says trade is not symmetrical. China has said that it will not bend to a bullying government. We're the bullies? Last year alone, we had almost a $300 billion trade deficit with China. Not to mention, I could list a ton more reasons, but this one gets under my skin. When the United States does company with China, they're forced to have a Chinese trade partner. Every time, inevitably, through those partnerships, by legal or illegal means, that trade partner will get their hands on all of the patents of the U.S. company doing business there. They'll get all their intellectual property. Then they'll find a way to make it cheaper over there and sell it back to us in the United States. We're the bullies. Are you kidding me? Then Tiffany Cross said, China's not our enemy. They're our biggest trading partner. I'm guessing she doesn't understand that those aren't mutually exclusive. Does she think that China trades with the U.S. or that we trade with China because we're pals? Both countries are looking out for their best interest. We're not trading with one another because we're friends and want to be nice. So let me just say this on the record, because I'm sure Tiffany Cross is watching. China is our biggest enemy. I know everybody's itching here to see what I teased in the intro, so let's get back to it.
If you're going to turn around in goodness knows when and say, can we have your help?
It's a colonizer's attitude to say, I like it, I'm just going to steal it. Now, the fact of the matter is, in this new land, you cannot just go and say, I like it, it's mine now. It doesn't work that way. Well, that is what they're trying to do. And in this new world order, yeah, absolutely. When they're looking at Greenland and say, I like it, I want to take it for mine, that is a very colonizing attitude.
I have never, ever said we're going to go to Greenland and, quote, colonize it or steal it.
You're not a member of government, so you're irrelevant at that point. I'm talking about the president of the United States doing that.
You got fired from your job.
You can agitate.
Scott, if you want to engage in personal insults,
I don't, but you do.
What you lack in a legitimate point, you make up for in personal insults.
I don't, you do.
Personal insults. The point I am making is in this new world order, we are looking at countries, whether or not they're an adversary or ally, it is being determined on what kind of deal we can get. And we cannot govern, we cannot legislate that way. We are increasingly isolated on the world stage.
No, we're not.
So if you want to engage in personal insults,
we're not
if I were you, I would reserve that for your party, who is increasingly isolated. This will our position
outside of the United States have you all spoken to in the last few weeks?
A lot.
Several.
I've been speaking to you frequently over the
You're my main ambassador.
You're slowly back.
No, I speak to a lot of Europeans. I speak to a lot of Panamanians. I speak to a lot of Central Americans, and they think, I'll tell you what they think. They think he's acting like a dictator. They think he's acting a lot like Ortega in Nicaragua, a lot like Maduro in Venezuela, a lot like they act in Cuba.
Are they serious when they say that?
Oh, no.
Yes.
By the
Dictatorship?
way, yes. Attacks on the free press.
I was in Brussels last week.
Wanting to stay in power.
Hang on, guys.
Dictatorship. We're not even close to dictatorship in the United States.
In the United States? Did you see what he did?
Hang on one second. One at a time, please.
Who defended the 2020 election results, who worked for him, asked for the DOJ to investigate him. That's what dictators do.
We're going to get to that later. We're going to get to that later.
People believe that we live in a dictatorship in America?
I lived in one.
And I know you have.
Okay, you know,
so you should know better than to say that
exactly.
we live in a dictatorship in the United States of America.
They censor the press, like he just did with the AP.
Okay.
So that's they do not listen to judicial orders like he hasn't done.
Hey, hold on, Chair Michael. Hold on. Let me let.
Did you guys know we live in a dictatorship? I still don't really know exactly what they're arguing, other than to just oppose whatever Donald Trump or the conservatives do. Again, there's so much to comment on, but I guess I'll go back to my favorite. Tiffany Cross has no idea what she's talking about. I'm convinced. And I say that without even a hint of levity. First of all, no one can or should ever take any human being seriously that invokes the word colonizer. That stuff worked to guilt white people in the past, but we're over it and we're on to your game. Not to mention, it is completely irrelevant to this conversation. Or any conversation, really, unless, I don't know, you're in a world history elementary class. No one in Trump's administration ever said we're going to take your land about any country. The U.S. has had interest in Greenland for decades, you donut. That hasn't changed. Scott, if you want to engage in personal insults, you wanted to engage in personal insults when you said that Scott is irrelevant. Don't start shit if you can't handle it when it's given back to you. I can see some conservatives, understandably, saying, Scott, even though she said that, you should have been the bigger man. And maybe nobody's thinking that, but I can see some responding to what he said in that manner. And I get it. But first of all, I promise his response would have been different if she was a man. Second, I've seen this in a lot of debates. A woman knows that a man will most likely handle her with kid gloves, so they think they can get away with being disrespectful. She's thinking, what's the worst that's going to happen? He's not going to punch me in the face. See, men are more cautious with other men because no matter how minuscule, there's always the threat of violence when you speak that way to another man. Unless he's unhinged, I think it's pretty rare that a man would say that to another man in a political discussion. And finally, sometimes in a debate, you need to match the energy of a hostile opposition to make it clear that I'm not going to be rude to you, but if that's the way you want to go, I can play in the mud too. Let me wrap up with this, and I'm going to apologize to my regular viewers because I probably say this every other video, but I'm asked two questions I've probably asked before. Who gives Tiffany Cross a platform? She adds absolutely nothing but chaos to every conversation she's a part of. And my second question is, who listens to her and says, well, she's making some really good points? But sound off in the comments, because like I think I've mentioned twice already, there is so much here I didn't even get to because it was so nonsensical. But let me know about whatever you want to in the comments. Tariffs in general, the fact that we're going to colonize Greenland, the spat between Scott Jennings and Tiffany Cross, how wonderful Tiffany Cross is. Let me know in the comments. Anyway, that's it for this video. If you like watching videos of Scott Jennings owning complete morons like Tiffany Cross, then click on one of the videos that's about to pop up on your screen. Otherwise, as always, I've got the best viewers on the planet. I am so unbelievably grateful that you took a couple minutes out of your day to watch my video. I know your time is valuable. Never forget, Jesus loves you. See you guys.